and this is the third in our playlist on beginning Illustrator, the object tools. And today we're going to learn to draw this lovely heart. So let's get started. First, I'd like you to go to the Essentials Classic workspace. That gives us a few more tools than the Essentials workspace, and that's what I'm going to be working with. You can navigate to the heart artboard on this file, which you can get from the Google Drive link down in the comments below. So let's go to heart. And you can also reach it from the status bar here, where you can navigate between the artboards. And we're going to draw this heart basically from a ellipse or a circle and a curved line. And we'll be using the all-important reflect tool, and we're going to learn a little bit about how vector drawing actually works. So I just want to kind of show you, review some things from the previous videos. For example, if I draw a rectangle, I'm going to go here. We haven't done this before, but I'm going to go to Outline View, which shows us the vector information in Illustrator without any stroke or fill. And when I draw this rectangle with a rectangle tool, and then if I select it, click off, and then click on with the direct selection tool, the white arrow, you can see that what Illustrator has done is it has created 4 anchor points, which are describing this rectangle. And if one of those anchor points gets deleted, the rectangle is no more. And it's the same thing with an ellipse, although the anchor points are a little bit different, because as I click off to deselect and then click on with the direct selection tool, the anchor points have these little handles, and you can still move them around, but these handles create more capabilities. So there are 2 kinds of anchor points in Illustrator: corner points and curve points. The rectangle is constructed of corner points, and the ellipse is constructed of curve points. So that's kind of important to understand about vector drawing. So let me go back to preview mode so we can see our colors. And I'll go to the default stroke and fill here by just clicking this little default box, and I've got a white fill and a black stroke. And I think I'll go ahead and show my non-printing grid. So let's draw an ellipse here. And we've done this in the previous 2 videos, so it's not very difficult. I'm just going to move it down over here. If you're familiar with Photoshop, Photoshop is a raster or a pixel-based program, and it works in a completely different way. And I want to show you, just switch into Photoshop real quick to show you the difference. If I had a circle here in Photoshop and I wanted to delete the bottom half of it, I would go to my eraser tool and I would start scrubbing back and forth and erasing. And that's how I would do that. Because in Photoshop, that circle or ellipse is made up of pixels. Oops, let me go back here. And you can see, if you look at the edge here, that there's a little bit of a soft edge because pixels are square. And as we zoom in on this, you can see what's called anti-aliasing, which is using gray and lighter gray pixels to try and smooth off that stair step that you get with a pixel-based program. Illustrator is a vector-based program. which means that it creates vectors between anchor points. And when we want to delete the bottom half of a circle, all we do is go to our direct selection tool, which allows us to select individual points. Click on the anchor point, the bottom anchor point, and hit the delete key on your keyboard. And there you go. So it's a little bit easier. I'm going to fill this with pink. And as we zoom in on it, you'll see that no matter how far we zoom in, that the edge is perfectly clean and crisp, and the curve is beautiful. This is the advantage of vector drawing, and this is why type and logos are always done in vector format. I know a lot of people start out with Photoshop and they get really good at it, and then they think, well, why do I need Illustrator? Well, Illustrator can do some things that Photoshop cannot accomplish. So we've changed our fill here to pink, so we kind of see what's going on. And next we're going to use the Arc tool. And the Arc tool lives under the line segment tool. And just as we talked about the difference between the rectangle and the ellipse tool, the line segment tool just draws a line, and it has corner points at the end. So there's no control handles. But underneath the line segment tool is the Arc tool. And the Arc tool draws an arc. And when we select it with the direct selection tool, you can see that it has control handles, so it can be a curve. So we're going to, right now, we're going to draw this arc here. And we're going to start, I'm going to zoom in a little here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my half an ellipse over so that it really is lining up with one of these grid lines. I'm going to choose my Arc tool. And then I'm going to position my cursor directly over the anchor point. And you'll notice that when I do that, the little word anchor pops up, so I know I'm in the right position. So I depress my mouse button and I pull it down. And I'm just bringing it over to be in exact line with that. So that creates my arc. By the way, if you are drawing with the Arc tool and it doesn't go in the direction you want, you can just hit the F key and that flips it. So you can make it go either way. So I'm going to put a fill on this. You can see right now it's a black stroke with no fill. I'm going to put a pink, oops, I have to select it first. I always forget to do that. I'm going to put a pink fill on it. And you see it kind of looks like that. Next, zoom out a little, we are going to activate the control handles, and by clicking, we get the direct selection tool, click off to deselect, and then click right on the curve. And if you grab this bottom and just drag it up, it makes a nice heart. It makes a nice shape there. But obviously it's not filling in the way that we want it in the instructions if you want a kind of a refresher over there. But this is obviously not filling the way that we want, and that is because of the way Illustrator works. Right now, these are separate. They are not together. They are two separate shapes, and what we need to do is fuse these two anchor points right up here. It looks like this is connected, but it's not. These are separate anchor points. There's one there and there's one underneath. So what we have to do is select those two anchor points and then fuse them. In order to do that, I need my direct selection tool. I click off to deselect, and I just draw a little marquee around those 2 points. And that, I should have stacked those points exactly. And if you did it carefully, you won't have any other work to do. If they were a little off each other, under the object menu, you could choose path and average. and both, and it would put them in exactly the same position. But in this case, I think I already did that. So all I have to do is go Object, Path, Join, or Command J, and you'll see that that will work quite a change on the way the fill is behaving. Wow, look at that. You see what happened there? Once this became fused, it filled all the way up. Now this is an open shape still, and you can see that right here, that this is open and this is open. And what we're going to do now is, instead of, to make the other half of the heart, instead of drawing this all over again, we're going to reflect it and copy it. So let me move it a little over here so I have room to reflect it. And a little closer here. So the Reflect tool is a very excellent tool. It lives under the Rotate tool here. And looks like that. If you, in this case, we want to select our half heart with the Selection tool. And you can tell that it's selected with the Selection tool, the black arrow, when you get your bounding box. And I want to explain a little bit about how the Reflect tool works. If you just select the Reflect tool, it will set a reflection point right in the middle of the object, in this case right here, and it'll reflect it around that point. That's not what we want in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our own reflection point. So I choose the Reflect tool, I hold down my Option, or on a PC my Alt key, and I hover over my anchor point here. With my Option key clicked down, I give a sharp click, and that gives me the Reflect dialog box. It's set to vertical, which is what I want. And instead of clicking OK, which I have to admit is kind of temptingly outlined here, you're going to click Copy. Beautiful. It reflected it exactly the way that I wanted. Now if we zoom in a little bit here, we will see that although it looks like this heart is complete, it really is not, because these two parts are still separate. And just to demonstrate that point, I'm going to fill this half of the heart with a different fill so that you can kind of see what's going on there. And put it back. So let me see if I get that in the right position here. Oops-a-daisy. Okay, perfect. So I want to, oh, it looks like I didn't get it quite the right position, did I, as I zoom in? Sometimes you see things when you zoom in that you did not see before. Let me go to Outline View here by doing Command Y. I can see I'm still not perfect here. Hey, there, that looks good, doesn't it? Nonetheless, Command Y will bring me back into preview. Nonetheless, these still two are not merged, and I need to join them. So again, the Direct Selection tool, click Off to make sure nothing else is selected, and then just draw a little marquee that selects those 2 points, and go to Object, Path, Join. Beautiful, and you can see that my fill changed. Now I need to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to zoom in, and I can see that I was a little bit, Command Y here is what I'm doing. I was a little bit inaccurate here. You can see these 2 points are not exactly in the same position. And I moved it back. I must have made a little bit of a mistake, but it's easy to fix. One of the great things about vector drawing is you can absolutely fix anything. So once again, the Direct Selection tool, click Off, make sure nothing is selected. Select those 2 points only. Object, Path, Average, both. Now they're in exactly the same mathematical position. Object, Path, Join. Beautiful. Go back to preview mode. And there we have it. We have our perfect heart that we just created. And that's pretty much it. I just want to point out once again the difference between the Selection and the Direct Selection tool. The black arrow or the selection tool allows me to move the whole object and to scale the entire object. And the direct selection tool allows me to select individual anchor points and to move them around and edit the curves. So they have related but very different effects. So on our next video, we're going to go down to artboard number 4. So let's go to there, and flower. And in our next video in this series, we're going to create a flower, and we're going to learn the rotate tool, and we're also going to learn Pathfinder. So I hope you'll join me for that video.